It's another lovely night down at Crypto Cove. Thank you everyone for joining me for tonight. For a lot of us, it's Friday nights. For some of you, it's the start of your weekend. But in your case, I'm grateful for each and every one of you to join me tonight. And tonight, I actually want to go over an upgrade to a set of tools that I use to help the pool playing community. And it's an upgrade that I think a lot of you will really enjoy. And I imagine each and every one of you will be using at least some point along your journey in pool playing. All right, so with that in mind, we'll go ahead and dive into it. So I suspect a lot of people here are familiar with my current iteration of tools, that being this Blogspot blog website that I've repurposed as basically a dumping ground for whatever tooling that I think to use. So far, that's been the add PF tokens button, which adds all of our custom tokens to MetaMask, and the RPC URL switcher, which gives users a quick and easy way to switch over their RPC URL to one that hopefully works if they're having issues with their current one for one reason or another. And can I get some reviews from some folks who have already used this before, either for yourself or your referrals or anything of that sort? How does it work for you all?
Hi, Hunter. I've used it many times, and I love it. It just makes life so easy. Uh, yeah, so all my new referrals, or if we're having trouble with, even with old referrals having to reload their wallet, yeah, it's just a magic tool because it just makes the process so simple. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it. Thank you so much.
Excellent, excellent. Glad to hear it's working well for you.
Same for me.
Thank you, Nicholas. Karen, go ahead.
I agree. I've used it a few times, and it's just so nice to just click a button and everything is there, or to change the RPC. It's so much nicer than to have to, okay, what are we going to do now? You click a button and it's done for you. It's so easy.
Excellent. Glad to hear it's working well for you. And in the chat, we have Kyle who says, I've used the tools, very helpful. Thank you, Kyle.
Yeah, I think
All
it's
right.
very helpful for the ones that don't know too much about the crypto space, that find it hard. Like some of them even find pancake swap and all that a bit confusing. So it's a lot better, your tool. I like it.
Yep, it's especially helpful for folks new to crypto, I've found. All right, so with that in mind, I'll go ahead and share my screen again. And yep, we've established that these tools are pretty helpful, but there are a couple problems with this sort of layout. And the biggest one is that this can get really cluttered, especially if I decide to try and add more functionality to it. Like, for example, you can see it's always starting to look a bit cramped with the 3 RPC URL switchers I have here. So that can be an issue. And also having this on a blogspot site just doesn't really look that professional at all. Now, there's not really a ton I can do about the second problem, but there is something I can do about the first and look maybe just a little bit more presentable in the process. So enter my new GitHub page. This page has all the different bits of tooling that I've created all in one spot, and it also has bigger buttons that have a better look and feel to them. And the page itself is absolutely much more minimalistic, so it takes up less memory than the Blogspot website. So that will definitely be of help to those members that may have slower connections or perhaps unstable connections, which isn't a problem for too many members that I've worked with in pool playing as of yet. But as we grow, we'll absolutely get to that point where having a good quality connection or even a stable connection at all isn't always a given. So this will definitely help with that. And the rest of this call is mainly going to be me going through a bit of a showcase as to what the bits of tooling here do what. And before I get into that, let me just open up the chat here. Alrighty. Quite a few more reviews there. Thank you, everyone. So anyway, let's get started. Up at the top, we see, of course, the welcoming unofficial proofing Web3 tools. And folks, I cannot stress the word unofficial enough. I am not an executive team member. I'm not technically part of the pool funding official structure in much of any way, apart from the fact that I'm a super whale. So yeah, this isn't something officially put in by pool funding or any of the folks involved with pool funding officially. This is literally just the community weirdo doing weird things, as I like to say. All right, so the first section here is add tokens to MetaMask. Now, I've done some retooling on the code involved to make it more streamlined. Most of the time, you won't really notice much of a difference, but it does pull up everything faster, so everything loads easier. So in this case, we'll go ahead and click Add All Tokens, and that'll open up MetaMask. Now, if you already have the tokens, or at least USDT, you'll see this notice here. That's fine. That's just MetaMask trying to warn you that you already have this token, and just in case this site might do something that you might be worried about. But in this case, I've worked with this code myself, so I know what it does. And this is going to add the USDT that we use. So I'll go ahead and click Add Token. Now, if you already have the USDT that we use and had that squared away, that's not actually going to do much of anything. So there you go. And I've noticed a lot of people have been really excited about this. We now have token images in all the custom tokens that we use. Now, this is also in the last iteration of my tooling on the Blogspot website, which I'm going to maintain that Blogspot site at least for a while for legacy purposes, but I'm not planning on adding any new utilities or functions to that site from here on. So everything's going to go on this site. So with that in mind, what this tool does is it allows you to add all the tokens in case you need to reinstall your wallet, or if something goes wrong for any reason and you don't have one or two anymore. So this allows you to add all of our tokens quickly and easily. And if you already have them, but you don't have the token images, this also allows you to put those on as well. Now, if you already have all of our custom tokens, then the only change this is going to make is cosmetic in that case. But I'll go ahead and click Add Token. And we'll go ahead and open up MetaMask for no reason because I already have these. But you can see that we do have our custom tokens, and we also have the images that go along with them. So that's pretty useful, I'd say. We've seen that before, but it's definitely still pretty useful. All right, and on the next section here, we have Switch Finance Smart Chain RPC. Now, this is an expanded version of the iteration I have on the Blogspot websites with a couple more RPC providers. We have Llama RPC, which used to be the one that I usually recommended all the time in the automatic portion of my guide, but it's gotten to the point where I'm starting to see it lag more and more with more latency past the block time. So I may end up replacing that at some point. Then we have Public Node, which is one of my new favorites. Low latency and pretty decent reliability. So that's a good one to pick as well. Then we have Block Razor, also good reliability. BLXR, also good reliability. Infura, now Infura is the default RPC provider used by MetaMask because the company that develops MetaMask also owns Infura at this point. So if you're one that's for decentralization as much as possible, then you might want to switch away from Infura. And especially since they had an outage just last week, which created quite a few problems if you were stuck on this RPC URL, unfortunately. And that actually leads back to an issue with Amazon Web Services. But that's well beyond the scope of this conversation we're having here. So we're just going to gloss over that for right now. And then we have ChainStack. Now, this is from a private node that I've set up with this RPC provider. So if it gets to the point where you are considering using this one, please consider donating. We'll go more into that later. And yeah, I have all these here because even the most stable RPC can go down at times, and even the most reliable RPC that seems to have the least latency can start to slow down after a while in some cases. And that's just the nature of how this environment works. So it may be that you have to try 2 or 3 of these every time you come here before you get to one that works. That's why I had them laid out simply like this. But let's say I want to switch over to public node. I can just click the public node button here, and then MetaMask will pop up with a request to update BNB chain. Now, this is a request to update my RPC over to the network URL used by the public node provider. And just like before, you're going to see some notices here. According to our record, the network name may not correctly match this chain ID, and we recommend that you verify the network details before proceeding. Now, these two are fine. It's just MetaMask trying to warn you that you're doing something that technically isn't, according to them, the most official way of doing things. But if we go past that, we can go ahead and click the approve button. And if I go ahead and open up MetaMask and go over to the BNB chain settings, we can see that I'm on the public node RPC. So that's good. And this works the same for pretty much all these RPC buttons here. So say if I want to switch over to Block Razor, I can absolutely do that. And yeah, ditto here, you can click approve to switch to Block Razor. And if I want to switch over to Infura, which is the default, I can do that as well. All right, it looks like that one is apparently bugged, so I'll have to check on that one at some later time. But let's go back over to public node and click approve. All right, so that just about does it for the RPC section. Before I move on to the net section, it looks like Karen has a question. Go ahead, Karen.
Hunter, is this the type of thing that we should maybe change every now and then, or only if we have a problem?
Generally speaking, only if you encounter a problem.
Okay, thank you.
Because if you don't encounter a problem with your RPC, then there's really no reason to change it at all.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Alrighty, so actually, let me go ahead and check the chat before we move on to the next section. Alrighty. So moving on. The last section we see right here is community documents. Now, this button is essentially a link over to my Google Drive share folder. And for anyone who hasn't seen that before, particularly if you're a newbie, I maintain a decent library of documentation for matters dealing with pool funding as well as cryptocurrency in general. There's a couple documents in here that are geared towards crypto newbies. There are a couple different iterations of a pool playing newbies guide to help you with onboarding referrals. There's quite a bit here to go through, and I highly recommend reading over this drive share and taking a look at anything that might trip your trigger, because you never know when you might need some of this. Alrighty, so we'll go ahead and close that. All right, now let's go ahead and go back up to the top, and the Connect Wallet button, if we click on that button, allows us to connect our wallet to the website. Now, there's only one bit of functionality that uses the Connect Wallet feature to do much of anything currently, but I've added that to allow for future proofing in case I decide to add more functionality to this website at some point that will require that. So that way, that just makes this whole operation a bit more streamlined and hopefully future proofs it a bit. And that bit of code, that feature that I just talked about, is the donation buttons. Now, I know some of you may or may not be interested in hearing about this, but as I've said before, I'm an unofficial part of the pool funding sort of gestalt, but as I've said, I'm not an official part of the team. So when I put together things like this, it's all done independently and out of my own time and effort. So if you decide you want to send some USDT, BNB, or PML my way, these buttons can help you do that easier. So you don't have to hunt down my wallet address in any of my guides or anything of the sort. You can just find them all right here. Now, for ethical reasons, I'm not accepting any of our pool flame tokens in the pool flame collection as of yet. So you won't see PFI, PFB, PFS, or PFG here. But in this case, we can see that we have BNB, USDT, and PML. BNB serves as the gas token for the Binance Smart Chain network. So I absolutely can always use that. USDT is the tether that we use, so absolutely also useful. And we also have PML, again, very useful. So with that in mind, let's say that I want to donate BNB to myself. I'll go ahead and click the BNB button, and what will pop up is a selector, so you can type in the amount of BNB you want to donate. And this is also going to be the same for USDT or PML. Note that this goes by the amount of that token that you want to donate, not any particular fiat value. So let's say that I want to donate 0.001 BNB to myself. I can type that in and click OK. And then MetaMask will pop up with a suggestion for me to donate that exact amount. We can see that that corresponds to about $1.11 right now. About that. All right, so I'm not going to actually do it because I don't want to waste the gas fee for something that's not going to make any changes whatsoever. So I'll go ahead and cancel the transaction. But if you want to actually make a donation, you would click the confirm button. And let's just test that works for USDT as well. So I'm going to say 10 USDT. And we can see that I have a transaction suggestion here, or rather a transfer request for 10 USDT from my wallet to my wallet. So again, no changes. And if we do the same with donate PML, let me go ahead and type in 0.001 and click OK. And we can see that we see the 0.001 PML transfer request. And right now that corresponds to $472 worth of PML. So I'll go ahead and hit cancel here. Alrighty, so as I said, this is where all the new functionality and most of the new stuff is going to be from here on. Now, I will be maintaining the Blogspot blog, at least for the time being, for legacy purposes, but I'm not going to be adding a new functionality to here. So everything is going to be right here. All right, so looks like we had a question here. I'm going to go ahead and stop the share. And Nicholas, go ahead.
Is it possible for you to mention the USDT or the US value as well when you enter a value in that field to donate, so that you get a little bit of idea of what you are doing?
I perhaps could do that if I want to add more functionality to the website. I perhaps could have it pull the value from somewhere. I might have to look into doing that because
I can help you with that.
That could entirely be possible, even if it's just for BNB or any of the other tokens for that matter. But definitely something that I'll look into. All right. Any further questions before we move on to the last bit of the call here?
Hey, Hunter.
Yes.
I apologize because I kind of got in on things late because I was driving, but I don't even know what an RPC is. Could you explain that? What does it stand for? And
It stands for Remote Procedure Call. And I don't want to get too technical in this meeting, but to essentially boil it down in layman's terms, basically think of it as the librarian that helps you when you're looking at the library that is the blockchain. Now, in some cases, that librarian, which is your RPC URL in this case, might get tired, might slow down, or might stop responding entirely. So in that case, you might want to look for a new one now, wouldn't you? To help with your request.
yeah,
And
but one thing that
go ahead.
confuses me is giving us, 5 or 6 different options and not knowing anything about any of them. If we do have problems and we need to turn to one of them, what's the first one we should try?
So the first one you should try, I've had these all laid out in the manner that I think people should try them. So if you look at the website, you can see that I have Llama RPC first. So try that one first. If that doesn't work, or it's too slow for you, or what have you, then switch over to public node. If something's wrong with that one, switch over to block razor, and
Gotcha.
so on.
Okay.
And
If you said
that's
that
why,
earlier, I apologize. I
no
just
problem.
I just saw, 6 different options and I'm like, well, that just confuses me.
And that's probably why I had 6 here, because odds are good that one of these might not work at one point or another. So I think having 6 here covers a good gestalt, and chances are that all 6 of these won't have problems at the exact same time. So it should be pretty useful for just about anyone who runs into problems with these.
Okay, thank you, Hunter, for the information. I appreciate it.
No problem. Shelley, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm so sorry, Hunter, but somehow I missed exactly how do we get to the tools?
So this is on a GitHub page that I'll have the link for in the wall of joy after the call. I'll also have it in the video description of this meeting recording. And I believe it's also been posted in the chat once or twice now.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
No problem. All right. Any further questions before we move on to the last bit here? No? Okay, let's move on to the last bit. And you all may have noticed, if you're eagle-eyed, that this has a subdomain to it. So the HR Web3 buttons is actually a subdomain of GitHub, which I'm now using to host the code that runs this little website here. And you can also access that code if you'd like by going to the bottom, and you can see a bit of information that I have here just as a disclaimer. And you can also see a bit of text here that says "You on GitHub." Now, if you click on that, that's going to go ahead and open up a new tab. And this is going to take you to the GitHub repository where I have all the code that this website uses, such as it is. So if you decide you want to take a look at it for yourself, you absolutely can. And if anyone wants to deploy any of this on their own websites, you have my blessing to do so, provided you give credit, that is. All right, so I think that just about covers everything that I wanted to go over. Does anyone have any questions, comments, anything of that nature? No? Did I do my job too well again, folks? Seems that
Yes,
this
Hunter.
is rubbing off on me quite a bit. On the hand, Ronald says, as a newbie, this is greatly appreciated. I'm glad it'll be helpful to you, Ronald. And you actually got a sneak peek of this earlier when I was working with you with your onboarding. So you were one of the first in the community who got to see it, apart from the whales and a couple other people. How special are you? I kid, of course. All right, Kyle says, great job, Hunter. Thank you. And Michelle says, yes, it is helpful, and thank you. Karen Stoyles, great tools. Thank you, Hunter. Alrighty, so if there's nothing else, that just about does it for everyone everything that I wanted to go over on this call. It's a relatively short call this time around. So with that, if there's nothing else, I'll go ahead and stop the recording. Going once, going twice,
Just thanks, Hunter.
absolutely.
Thank you.
And absolutely. And I'll go ahead and stop the recording.